this is Shannon popping on here, and I want to talk today about authenticity and what I've known over the span of several decades working with people in a variety of capacity is that, well, the spoiler alert is that our world is highly dysfunctional in a lot of areas of the world. However, there are many parts of the world where it's not that way. And when you are in a really dysfunctional part of the world, or you are in a company, family, environment, friend group, career type that is very conditioned and sometimes very dysfunctional and tries to put you in a box of constructs, only certain types of people do well in that situation. Often folks with trauma histories and who are neurodivergent and or just non-conformist, that's not going to work. And often what our society does is it pathologizes folks that don't conform to unwell systems. And unfortunately in the West, it's gotten to be very materialistic and very individualistic. And through my own ancestry journey and my own ancestral healing, it was coming back more into animist understandings, knowings of that everything is really interconnected, and that if you look at things like systems theory, that we are individuals, but we are interdependent. We are interconnected to the systems, the culture, the family, the workplaces, that we are either, whether we have a choice or not in being a part of it, that's for another conversation. But there's feedback loops that come in and out of the systems that we are a part of, whether we want to be a part of them or not. Sometimes we are a part of them. And then animistically, there's energies, right? That there's consciousness is now being discussed as being what the mystics have always known, not only non-local, but more moving. And this is where we see, online, the internet is a great example, and social media is like a wonderful example of like possessions by the memes, memetics. And the possession by the memes is algorithms controlling and your consciousness and feeding you information based on your likes and your engagement as to what groups and information and access that you belong to. So this has degraded society over the last 10 years because the algorithms are for profit and they are moving folks into more siloed, more us or them. Why? To control us. And it doesn't have to be so terrifying. It's really fundamentally what I've learned as far as understanding the root causes is always follow the money. And if the money is profiting off of ads and our attention spans, we are the product online, and we are what's for sale. Our intention, our energy, our emotions are what's for sale. And then that also further degrades our authenticity because we don't get really a big say into the algorithms that are coming to us rather than our engagement online. I mean, this is causing a massive division in our society, and it's also causing too much information overload. Our nervous systems aren't meant to process tragedy after tragedy at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then when we're talking about, well, Shannon, you're talking about being my authentic self, and then we are overwhelmed or stressed and traumatized, and on top of trying to reach and to integrate our authenticity. And these societal stories, America's a great example of like, you gotta be somebody. Like, and you are what your job title is. And folks are trying to make it, and they will double down on all of that. And America runs on, it runs on, it's a very individualistic society. It's very capitalistic, and it runs on, as far as the hustle culture, and it's a burnout culture, so that you over-credential, overwork in order to be fulfilled. And it's a trap ultimately, because how humans are meant to be fulfilled are meant to have choice in their fulfillment, meant to be more integrated. And when your identity is very much wrapped up in what you do, and then that leaves out the opportunity to actually be your full authentic self. Not even, folks don't even have time to have hobbies, because they're running around working all the time, a lot of times because they have to, of course, but also moreover because of how the family structure has been eroded. I'm a first generation college student. I had to leave my hometown in order to not get shot, number one, make it out alive, so for survival, but also to have a chance. And I'm not the only one that's done that. There's been so many folks that have had to do that, and that have had to, be able to kind of make it. And in that, then there's this loss of like this who am I? Oh, okay, then I need to grasp, especially for those of us with trauma histories who we maybe don't know who we are anyways. We are what the world tells us that we are. Oh, I'm this certification. Oh, I'm this career. Oh, I am an influencer. Oh, I am this, I am that, I'm that. And we can get carried away, and we can, if we don't have enough awareness, discernment, support, and haven't done our inner work, we can start to identify with these roles. We can start identifying with our identities. I'm this, I'm that. Motherhood was a great example in my personal life of like, what does that mean in all of these roles? However, I've been an existentialist from the jump, a really deep thinker, thankful to my neurodivergence, and I've always questioned the conditioning that's coming in, because we're always being conditioned, whether we know it or not. And it's a hot tip to know that you're being conditioned, so to constantly decondition. So when we have all this information coming at us, and we're really stressed, then we jump to quick solutions. Okay, I feel empty inside, so I need to go and do this. I need to be somebody instead of being, right? And spirituality misses the integrating the trauma, because folks cannot access the present moment when their nervous system and their bodies, minds, and spirits are being drugged back to the past over and over again. The trauma world misses the spiritual dimension because it's only focused on, unfortunately in the West, just pathologizing really trauma. The DSM could be, number one, it's being totally, that's for a whole other topic. The DSM was meant to be used for codes inter-office to communicate treatment plans and to approve or deny treatment plans. It wasn't meant to pathologize people, and here we are, right? And the DSM is not trauma-informed. And the DSM could be probably reduced to a pamphlet, if it was, as to here is the ways that genetically trauma may express if your provider isn't trauma-informed, and if they are looking at if they're not understanding the systems of society and how that may influence, because we have been massively gaslit as to the dysfunctional systems of society, those systems traumas that are creating and causing our individual trauma. If you've been living in poverty, of course you're going to have some sort of reaction to that. Like, that's natural. We have pathologized the human condition up the wazoo, and that's also creating a less authentic state of being Because if when you're reaching out for care, and when you reach out for care, someone says, okay, this is I'm going to give you this label to explain why you feel this way, rather than acknowledging, oh yeah, these systems are harming, and then you have to be a part of it because this is where you live, and this is your income level, and this is your background, and that's why these things are happening. So that can degrade authenticity. So then we've got folks who feel like, I can't be authentic because I'm carrying this label, and that label hasn't been integrated, it hasn't been compassionately witnessed. Folks don't have an understanding as to the why of it all, and then here we are. And we're becoming less and less authentic, and more dysfunctional, dysregulated, dissociated in the process of trying to gather information. I don't know about you all, but when the internet came on, I was like, oh great, it'll be like an encyclopedia online. And wow, yeah, it is that, but it's also just this massive conditioning agent that we want to be intentional about these technologies that we're engaging with. And we want to understand them, and when we have digital literacy rates that are astronomically low, and education reading rates that are astronomically low, and when we have comprehension rates that are astronomically low, of course you're going to get what we have right now. So yes, I'm all over the place, seemingly so, but that's how a non-linear person that's putting it all together to make it understandable for people and I'm talking to the people, this video is going to go out to people who are trying to understand, well, why can't I be authentic? Why don't I feel? Because a lot of times when folks are like a systems thinker, non-linear thinker, a polymath is someone that's good at a lot of different things. They can be told and pathologized as all of these kinds of ways, especially if they have a trauma history that looks kind of a certain way, if the provider isn't trauma trained or informed, and most aren't. So they're gonna receive these things, and that's gonna become the role, and that's gonna become the identity. Not all of the time, but that is to be integrated. I don't mention all of the time about my ADHD diagnosis when I was a kid, because I knew from the jump that I was radically authentic, and I was living in a world that didn't get it. And of course I received this, this label because I like to do various different things, because I really want to understand what's going on. I'm a voracious learner, and I love integrating all aspects of my being in this lifetime and all others. And yeah, that comes, with some sensory stuff, but it also comes with some massive gifts and healing abilities. But yeah, you're going to need to support that, because I'm picking up on the sounds of electricity right now, but also the sounds of your soul. So of course that's not going to be understood, but that doesn't mean that I have to take this on as this like identity and other myself, because I belong, because I'm part of life, and I know why I incarnated this way, and I have a deep loving understanding of that. But there's so many folks that they have had such difficult learning experiences because of their trauma or some type of marginalized identity or their neurodivergence. And then we have these, we're still training kids kind of like in this assembly line, kind of like trying to, just everyone is kind of trying to assimilate into the sameness. And then that is one of the most soul crushing things for someone who's a systems thinker and very existential, and like has a big heart and is a deep feeler, very connected, and very highly empathetic, very, very, very existential, maybe very, very hands-on. And we're not cultivating, because we're not cultivating these these states of being and these learners. And then we have this deluge, and we're inundated with all this information, and folks feel like, I don't know where to turn. I don't know if you've all noticed this, but there's this massive awakening that's happening. But then what's happening on the other end of the spectrum are folks are totally totally burnt out and checked out because it's too much. It's been too much, and there hasn't been enough acknowledgement about mistakes. There hasn't been an ownership of those that are in positions of power as to say, oops, we missed it. Oh, we got some of these things wrong, and here's how we're going to make connections. There's been no social repair, right? Like when we're issued these big apologies, it's kind of like maybe some money gets thrown at it. Most of the time it doesn't, but it's just as bypassed and moved on. It's more performative than authentic. And folks like me, folks with trauma histories, folks who are neurodivergent, we read the energy in the room, boo. And so it's like, no, that's performative. That's checking off these boxes. And then, so when you don't see authenticity, we're not seeing these leaders, so-called leaders, quote unquote leaders, being authentic, then that makes it, we don't have generations of authentic elders. We don't have generations of wise elders. They're here and there. But when we're missing that, then where do we find the roadmap? Now that's kind of like a systems, pull out one of the threads, I'm sprinkling it all out there of what's going on when it comes to authenticity. Now, I don't just leave it there, because we're actually the answers, and our body is our like our North Star, is our guide. We can channel all our higher self, we can channel our deepest wisdoms, we can be with our ancestors, we can be with the deepest knowing. So much of the time, folks, we've talked about trauma until the cows come home, but we haven't really defined that, like, yeah, you inherit trauma and burdens, but you also inherit ancestral wisdom and your own wisdom, and like within equal proportions. And that is the divine reciprocity within. And that is how I practice. Very empowering. You are your own guru. I'm there. I'm there with some skills and some teachings, and it's fast. Why is it fast? Because you are going to heal you. And I'm not jumping into the Western model of like only self-healing. No. We have evolved, and we have a nervous system that is interconnected with one another. HeartMath Institute has done research. There's so much research onto the coherence of ourselves and another person. Have you ever been in a room with someone who's very, very dysregulated and you didn't feel okay? Okay? Energy is that way too, but that's for a whole other conversation. So we are not meant to, when we are stuck and when we are feeling like scared to be authentic, those are two of the things that happen to that kind of block. And obviously trauma blocks authenticity, because a lot of times people have had so many negative experiences when they were their full selves. And because of the people around them, to the low spiritual and emotional, they were very immature. The people around them, they dampen focus light. And then now when they're trying to shine their light, they need a lighthouse. And the lighthouse is going to co-regulate. That's what I do. And my major tool is my own regulated nervous system, so that we can, in that ventral vagal state. So ventral vagal, our vagus nerve is the longest healing nerves, miles and miles in our body. That is called the healing nerve in the body. When I got a book deal, the book deal to nowhere, don't look for the book, because I wrote it and then pandemic happened and the company went defunct, and it's done, but it's on my computer. So the vagus nerve, this long healing nerve in the body, this is what most folks with trauma histories and that are chronically stressed, they're not having access to this regulatory energy inside. And that's what we have to, and that's what I'm a ninja skilled at, to help you reconnect inside through our work together, through practices we do together, to reconnect the nervous system to the vagus nerve, to that ventral vagal energy, which the ventral vagal energy is everything from okay to transcendental experiences, helps us get into active, helps us create and do actions without activation, helps us to be mindful and restful without collapse and dissociation. Helps us to play, helps our health, helps our well-being. And this is what most folks with complex trauma, of course, but chronic trauma and stress and most of our society. Most of our society is running on unprocessed trauma. That looks like a culture, and put that in quotes, because America is not meant to be running around acting like whatever is going on, because that's not whole. When you're whole, you know that this mosaic of your soul, all of these past experiences, all of this past, everything in your life can be integrated from not only move that energy through, but bring in the wisdom with that. And you are all of that. You're not just one role, one mask. You are all of that. And the mystics, they kind of nailed it, but they nailed it in a way that we need to integrate and update it a little bit in this life, because there's been so much of oppression around the body, and the body continues to be denied and repressed. And there's been so much denial of body that we as humans, we have not reached our full potential, and the time clock is ticking. So we've not reached our full potential, and we can, but we have to learn how to use our nervous systems, and we have to deconstruct the fact that the West got it wrong with rugged individualism, because none of us are meant to. We did not evolve. We have a human nervous system, which means that we are meant to be with one another when things are hard, when things are good, when things are okay. We are meant to have, through mirror neurons in our nervous systems, our heart rates, we're meant to be with one another in order to realize our full potential, including authenticity. Now, I'm not saying that somebody can't do this on their own, because they absolutely can, absolutely have, and we're still not meant to do that. We're a pack mammal, okay? And I don't want a rugged individualism to get us tripped up. Now, and I'm not saying the East got it right either, because people are like, well, wait a minute. Because then there's a lack of individualistic, and there's a lack of authenticity too. And I'm saying these are massive generations. If you have 14 hours for a longer conversation, I'm happy to get into it with you. But for summary for this teaching today, and our shortened attention spans, which are getting even shorter because of what is going on with online information and the memes, that one of the fast tracks to authenticity is a variety of tools, practices, and ways. All ways can lead home truly into your authentic self. Home is within. It's a state of consciousness and a state of being. It's a compassionate, energetic, that you're connected to everything, including yourself and all of your past, and it's all witnessed and received and lovingly really held in this beautiful way, even when we're struggling. And that's a practice in order, and it can become very spiritual, it can become very meaningful, but at the end of the day, it's very, very human. It's very, very primal. And that's really, really important. It's also very scientific, and science is proving what my indigenous ancestors have always said, what the mystics are saying, and so it's profoundly fascinating. At the same time, we want to be very discerning as to, even our uniqueness. And of course, everything on a spectrum, because we can, if we've had like a spiritual experience or a big transformational experience, mystical experience, we can also get possessed by the archetypes, and then kind of get lost in these archetypes that we are meant to integrate, okay? We are meant to integrate all of these things, a mosaic of self, a mosaic of soul. We're meant to integrate it because these are lessons that we're learning. They're not things to be grasped onto. And that's okay to identify with it for a period of time, but to know that that's just an integration period. Okay, because if you over-identify, you can get stuck with that, and then you're not moving on to the process of being with all of yourself, all of the light, all of the dark, all of the ways that can be projected in all these messy ways that's causing all of this dysfunction in the first place. So, this is my systems nonlinear teaching on authenticity and some breadcrumbs for you to contemplate, think about, and I'm going to leave it here with that. If we were working one-on-one, we'd be going into a practice so that you can get an embodied experience of that. I'm not going to do that today. Rather, this is top-down info, and then our work together is that bottom-up. Feeling, understand, because it's a knowing. When you feel it and know it, it's a knowing beyond words, beyond knowings. Our bodies actually have a whole different story that connects us to our spirit energy and beyond, all within us. It's so beautiful. We're a conduit from heaven and earth, and interconnected with all, and that can be a sacred experience when that is something that is consistently practiced. And it comes with massive discernment, because then you can feel the energies that are coming in. Then you can feel the energies are coming in and coming through, and then you can discern, do I want to interact and engage with this or not? Are these thoughts and energies and feelings even mine, right? One of the questions that we always want to ask ourselves, is this mine? Is that your, like, is this, before we start identifying with that? And then grasping and holding on to it as these energies move through, which is science is showing, and the animists have talked about that for so long. And I love that there's actually some modalities that are really understanding of this at this point in time, that are kind of taken off with widespread applications and use, and so it's really amazing. I love that. But that comes from the ancestors. That comes from the ancestors, and how they knew us to be when they knew that we were all more like mirrors and reflectors, and when we operated as like a unit, and so that's a little bit about authenticity for today. Something to noodle on, something to contemplate on, and something to consider as your authentic self. Also, the final piece is, this doesn't mean perfection, and it doesn't mean you're doing a big thing. Your authentic self is your authentic self when you haven't taken a shower and you're in old sweatpants and it's been a hard day. That's still some authentic expression. It's just in a different aspect of your nervous system. Okay, your authentic self is not just transcendental experiences. No, we cannot bypass the vast richness, this like surfing the waves of not only duality, but surfing the waves of within our nervous system. And that we're meant to get into these cycles of being in these different states. We're not meant to grasp onto that. And this is where so many practitioners or influencers rather they've got a partial piece of it, but of the information, but the full story is, man, we're surfing. We're surfing. And it's how you are in all of that, how you relate to yourself, and then when do you reach out? How do you know when you need to? It's all of those things. And it can get to be pretty complex, but at the end of the day, it's very, very simple. Very, very simple. Okay, so something to think about. Take what's for you, leave the rest. See you later.